What I'm going through with parenting right now is trying to figure out how to discuss the hatred in the world.
Brazen brutality. People attacked in the streets.
There's been a rise in violence against Jews, and it makes me scared.
Just really vile speech towards myself, and I've never experienced so much anti-Semitism.
I'm angry because this should not take place against my brother and sister simply because of their Jewish faith.
Somebody carved on my table a swastika. Anti-Semitism is on the rise in America.
Jews will not replace us!
We don't look one way, we don't speak one way, but we have a common heart and a common journey.
I think it's really painful. And I think we have to have a kind of Jewish pride about who we are and about where we've come from, about what we've achieved.
I'm proud of the fact that Jews have survived.
I think for me, it's the fact that we can claim Paul Newman.
No matter what happens to us, we go on.
May all people find a way to live together and say l'chaim everywhere.
L'chaim.
Hi, Nancy.
Hello.
I'd hug you, but you're holding a knife. Thank you so much for having us in your home. This is so exciting.
This is where I'm the most comfortable, and when I'm the most comfortable, that's when my food tastes the best. So.
I love that. Well, you know the old saying about Jewish holidays. They all have the same theme. They tried to kill us. We won. Let's eat. Have you heard that?
No, I haven't.
That's basically every Jewish holiday in a nutshell. And I guess it's kind of the theme of what we're going to be talking about tonight, too.
No, it's going to be late.
It is Einat Admony, the badass business bitch chef of New York City.
Continue.
So tonight we are having a dinner to celebrate the Jewish culture. And there's also a dinner happening in LA hosted by Idina Menzel.
Michael!
Hey, how are you?
Hey! Thank you for doing this.
Hey, thank you.
I'm so
this is a
excited to
thrill.
have this dinner.
Yeah, who's coming?
We have Rachel Bloom, Bryan Greenberg, Josh Peck, Hannah Einbinder, Alex Edelman, and we have best-selling author and therapist Lori Gottlieb. Thank God we have a therapist for this.
Right, it's a Jewish meal, so we have to have at least one therapist.
We have to have a shrink.
Here in New York City, we're kind of like the fun table. We got fashion designer Zac Posen, actress Tommy Dorfman, Michael Zegen, comedian Michael Black, and to bless this mess, Rabbi Sharon Brous.
We have an unbelievable group of people coming tonight to talk. We have Jonathan Greenblatt, CEO of the Anti-Defamation League. We have Jordan Firstman, funny comedian. Hari Neff, Skylar Astin. Rachel Sumekh is coming, who was just listed on Forbes' 30 Under 30 list. And this is a little surprise to you. We actually scared up one of your friends. Ruth Reichl is coming. She's your homie.
She is my homie.
So it's going to be an amazing journey.
This is incredible. Let's eat Shabbat dinner.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Hey.
Shabbat.
Shabbat shalom. You're Jewish, right?
What's up, Moshe?
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Hi, good to see you.
Hi, Ilana Glazer.
Hey, Shabbos. This is beautiful.
Where was this Shabbat dinner my whole life?
Okay, so welcome.
Thank you.
Tonight is about celebrating what it means to be Jewish in this modern day. It's also about, with all that's going on in the world and the rise of anti-Semitism, what it looks like and sounds like to stand up against that.
Part of what we're doing here also is discussing how the oppression that other marginalized groups feel can be battled by not just Jews coming together to talk about anti-Semitism, but how all groups can come together and talk about sort of smashing that kind of bigotry in our time. So let it be said, so let it be done.
What do Black folks and Jewish folks love best? Chinese food. So I have kosher soul rolls. So literally they're pastrami and collard greens and peppers and other good stuff. And also black-eyed pea hummus. Yeah, so with a bunch of critter taste.
Wow. Really?
So enjoy that.
Oh my God, amazing.
That is so good.
You are
I am.
spoiling us tonight with your delicious treats. Tell us about what we're starting.
So I want to tell a little bit about myself. I grew up as a Mizrahi girl, dark, in Ashkenazi neighborhood. And Mizrahi is the people that came from like Yemen, Iran, like Arabic country. So the food is very different. So we are the only Mizrahi family and one Moroccan in the building. And this is how I start cooking, actually. I have to help my mom when they became very religious when I was young to prepare for Shabbat dinner. And Shabbat dinner is like having Thanksgiving every weekend. So we're going to start with harissa falafel, a little bit spicy. And then on top there is like tahini snow.
Tahini snow.
What's on top of it? It's like a fluffy tahini. It's like to take tahini and change a little bit the texture so it's like melting in your mouth. And this is over there called sabich. It's with some eggplant and quail egg and amba aioli, challah bread.
Yum. Oh, wow.
I've never had quail eggs. I've always wanted to. So thank you for that.
Oh, the tahini snow.
We're going to start out with little gem lettuces with some fresh herbs and radishes, but the pièce de résistance is going to be the labneh toast on the side. Okay.
Nice.
So that kind of brings in my love of Middle Eastern food.
This is so amazing.
The radishes are so crisp.
So before us is a tray of scrolls. And so we're each gonna take a scroll and ask a question and then each answer every question. There's a lot to discuss. Tommy, what does your scroll say?
Tell me you're Jewish without telling me you're Jewish.
I don't know, I used to make bras out of yarmulkes.
I had a panic attack at my bar mitzvah.
Panic attack, period.
Yes. My aunt lives in Boca.
I know the guy who cuts the best locks at Zabar's.
I know that, the old guy.
I love to feed people.
My mom's matzo ball soup's better than yours.
My name is Moshe Kasher. As the late great Patrice O'Neill once said when I was opening for him, every night he'd go, Moshe Kasher, your name might as well be Jewish.
You mind if I...
I'll tell you.
There you go.
Judaism is so complex because it can be a religion, an ethnicity, and a culture.
How would you define what being Jewish means to you?
Like, here's the interesting thing, is it's hard to define, I think, among Jews. Like, I'm culturally Jewish, racially Jewish, but if you ask a Hasidic person, I think they would say I'm not Jewish, right? I can't think of another, like, identity that's quite like it.
My wife is Irish Catholic, and so I've had conversations with her family, much like we're having here, about understanding the difference between the racial part of it or the ethnic side of it, the religious side, and where does it all meet. And I heard someone say there are people from Judea, and our customs became this thing that we could carry in a briefcase because we were constantly under attack either by the Romans or the Byzantines, and like, you name it, they wanted us out. And then Judaism became the religious side of it, but we were Judean people, and we put together this sort of ready-to-go briefcases, bug-out kit of like, when shit gets real, wherever we go and spread out to, but we'll always be able to hold on to our customs.
It's like a cultural go-bag.
Yeah.
I have to come clean. So my real spelling of my name is Menzel, which everyone would say Menzel, and I had a lot of self-hatred about that for some reason, and then wanted this cool sounding, so I took the T out, which didn't help anybody say it right.
Being Jewish in this business has been sort of a double-edged sword. Like, it's definitely gotten me some great parts, but I've definitely gotten the, we're just gonna go more all-American. And I'm like,
right.
Yo, I'm from Omaha. Like, I don't know, I don't know if it gets more all-American than that. Here's a question. When you have to fill out what ethnicity you are, do you say white? Do you say black? Do you say other? What do you say? I reject it and I say other, because I don't want to be labeled. And I also don't feel like I'm just white.
Well, I think that you're right. Depends on whose company you're in. If it's a medical form, I would put Jewish because it matters in terms of your medical history.
Yeah.
But anywhere else, I would think twice about it. And I hate to say that, but that's the reality.
Are Jews white? What does it mean when people say Jews are or are not white?
I would just add that this kind of smiley face, happy-go-lucky account of my relatively turbulence-free Jewish upbringing in the northeastern United States in the 90s and 2000s is inextricably linked from my identity as an Ashkenazi Jew who benefits from white privilege.
In America in 2022, when we often think about race, the social construct that we're locked into is race is about black and white, or race is about BIPOC people versus white-presenting people. But we Jews, we're complicated, and we don't exactly fit that. Again, like some Jews don't present as white. And even if we present as white, you know, we are not white enough for those white supremacists. Like, you may think you present as white, Hari, but they know you're not white.
Now, I never said I was white. I said that I benefit from white privilege.
Right.
And
That's a good point.
I see white identity and benefiting from white privilege in this country frequently interchangeable, but in these highly charged conversations around identity, ethnicity, these are important distinctions. And I know that there are hundreds of thousands of people far away from the places that I've lived my whole life and grown up that do not see me the way that the people on the streets of the town I grew up in the city I live in now, the way they see me. I know that in my mind, but I've never really quite experienced it, and I can be open about that.
Right. Yeah. In terms of European Jews, like I always say, if you think you're white as a Jew, just ask somebody that really, 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 really likes white people, and they'll let you know that you're not. So we're both. We're both. We're of course white, and we're also the anti-white. That's really what it is. And so you can benefit from white privilege, and you can also be afraid that your synagogue is going to get bombed.
Yeah.
From my perspective, like the conversation is always, are Jews white? All they're ever doing is looking at Ashkenazi Jews, and they're ignoring this huge section of Judaism, which is like, the answer is no.
For me, I have multiple identities, multiple ethnicities. My Jewish identity is so linked to being Iranian. Like, I eat Jewish food that is specifically Iranian and Jewish, right? Like, I pray in a way that's specifically Iranian and Jewish. And so the mainstream cultural Judaism, I learned to speak Yiddish and say Sheina Panim and know how to get away with so much in the community, which is amazing and wonderful. I love the exchange. I view it as a contribution, right? That we have so many different ways of behaving. When Ashkenazi Jews came to the States, we held on to Yiddish, held on to the customs and traditions. And as generations go on, you know, you kind of assimilate. And Persian Jews, because we're so fresh, have held on to a lot of those traditions still. So very deeply instilled in me is making sure Shabbat happens every Friday night. Kept kosher growing up a lot, and I still feel very close to the story of immigrating because of persecution.
That's such an interesting spectrum, too, between Hari and Rachel. Like, somewhere in the middle is everybody's Jewish identity.
To be Jewish is to be a part of mishpacha. And I don't mean to alert anybody here, but if Abraham and Sarah were on an airplane, they'd be on a watch list.
Yeah.
Right? They were Iraqi. But that's the thing. Our tradition made room for these possibilities. We don't look one way, we don't speak one way, but we have a common heart and a common journey.
Amen.
Yeah. Wow. Part of me is of Ashkenazi Jewish descent, but my identity's become more complicated because when I was 16, I came out. So I often have people say to me, but how are you gonna deal with the fact that you have these three sociologists call them master identities that people ain't cool with in the society? And I said, gotta hit the jackpot. You know, this is an opportunity for me to really live an extraordinary life. Why be boring? Why be basic? Just be black, gay, and Jewish and Southern. You know?
It really is whatever you invest in. Like, it's a religion, it's an identity, it's a set of neuroses, like whatever you want it.
Hi, it's Rachel Dratch here, walking the streets of New York, looking for Jewish people and their allies. Finding a Jewish person in New York City. This is gonna be hard. Oh, what's your name?
I'm Jordan. I'm a Jewish person in New York City.
It's like a needle in a haystack. How do you guys know each other?
We met in high school, in theater.
Oh, okay. Were you in a certain production? Fiddler on the Roof, maybe? Let's keep it topical. Just get to the heavy, hard-hitting stuff. Gefilte fish, yay or nay?
Oh, it's my favorite food in the world. I put it on top of my pizza. My favorite food. I have gefilte fish earrings to match.
How do you feel about gefilte fish, yay or nay?
Well, we have it every week for Shabbos.
What? Gefilte fish on a weekly basis?
So I actually have never had it.
What?
I know.
What about gefilte fish? Have you tried it? Have you ever had the misfortune?
I have heard of it.
That's good. Let's leave it
I
at
don't
that.
know what it is.
Let's leave it at that. What's a Jewish stereotype that bothers you or that you don't feel applies to you at all? And that you're like, what? That's not true.
Maybe that like we don't stop talking and that women are like a bunch of yentas who sit around all day on the stoop talking. About like lighthearted.
Where did they get that idea?
I don't know where that came from at all.
Have you ever experienced anti-Semitism?
Although I haven't experienced it, thank God, there are definitely times where I'm afraid to be myself or wear my star on the street.
My daughter was called in our local park.
I had my mezuzah ripped down from my door.
My other daughter was walking along the road with friends during the Sabbath a few weeks ago, and someone screamed out Jew in the car.
How important is allyship for all marginalized communities?
I think it's very important because we are stronger in numbers. The more of a community that we build with each other, the less and less we'll see all this hate being spread around.
We face lots of hates like every day. I feel like that's why we have to stick together, like help each other, get to know each other, like be friends together, right?
I think it's very easy for us to get caught up in stereotyping each other and caricaturing each other, and it really reduces the richness of what it means to be alive.
What do you feel like you as an ally can do to help stand up to anti-Semitism?
Use their voices and amplify them across either my social media platforms or anyone that I speak to, and just help share their stories to let people know that this is real, this is happening, and speaking up and saying something about it can't make a difference.
I think it's just a matter of listening, of educating yourself about what Jewish people have gone through and growing and evolving from there.
What can Jewish people do to stand up against anti-Semitism?
So I think it's really important to tell our stories, especially, and to people who aren't Jewish, to understand that there are so many different kinds of Jews out there. We don't all come from Eastern Europe. We speak different languages. We're all different shades of colors. We eat different food. We listen to different music.
We need to come together and really make sure that we are being outspoken and calling out anti-Semitism for what it is.
Falsities about education as well as its origins have led to the persistent persecution of Jews, and so it's on us to advocate, especially with our state policymakers, to have comprehensive Holocaust and anti-Semitism education.
Woo. Mic drop on that.
That's how I get through gefilte fish, is the magenta-ass horseradish.
Yeah.
And also
that's
magenta,
the
it
best.
makes it pretty.
I pretend that it's like some strange European delicacy, like a German delicacy.
It's your caviar.
And it's like a fish, a fish dumpling.
Are you Sephardic?
I'm not.
What not? You're not. Cool.
I always thought I was.
Yeah, I mean,
And then I did this PBS show, Finding Your Roots, and they're like, you are not Sephardic.
I
And I'm there like,
love
but I
Finding
feel
Your
like a
Roots.
desert person.
Michael, I'm dying to hear what your scroll says.
I will read my scroll. What are some stereotypes and misconceptions about Jewish people that you find offensive, and how do they make you feel?
We run the media, we run Hollywood, we are cheap. We all very wealthy.
Greedy.
Greedy.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
True, unfortunately, but.
Yeah. The stereotype of Jewish mothers, overbearing, always there. As a Jewish mother, I really resent it. And I said to my son today, am I a Jewish mother? He said, Mom, no one could be farther from a Jewish mother than you.
My mom did text me today when I told her I was doing this. She said, don't say anything bad about me.
We were talking about the stereotype of Jews running Hollywood and owning the media. And I guess I want to acknowledge that, this is a particularly successful group, and we're just a small portion of the Jewish community.
We are also bus drivers and teachers and nurses and doctors. And
like the idea that Jews control media and government and even the weather, right? There's this idea that Jews are striving for world domination.
Are you joking about the weather?
No, that's a thing. That's a thing.
This idea the Jews control implies that there's a Jewish agenda. But Jews are so incredibly different. So to argue that there's an agenda, I mean, that's the core of all anti-Semitism, is the idea that the Jews were all plotting in a corner.
Yeah.
So much of Jewish identity historically comes from the impression, the Jews are good with money. Well, Jews were only allowed to be money lenders for many, many years. So you only allow Jews to be money lenders, and you say, well, you're good with money. What other choice did they have?
Well, there's this idea that Jews are greedy. So it goes along with that thing about power. I remember once I was at a lunch with people and the check came and we were all gonna split the check and someone said to another person, like kiddingly, don't be such a Jew.
Yeah.
Right?
We've all heard that.
Thinking that that was funny. I don't know.
Or Jew 'em down, you heard that one?
Yeah, Jew 'em down, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are in a state of limbo, all of us. We've been made to fit into these categories for other people to judge us, harm us, hate us, etc.
How many times have people said to you as a compliment, oh, you don't look Jewish?
Yeah. All the time. Never, it's never, no one's ever been like, you, Alex Edelman? You don't look Jewish. It's never happened to me.
That every stereotype has a historical kind of through line or a path that how did we get there? How do we get to Jews are being greedy? Well, Christianity came along and they had anti-usury laws, so a Christian couldn't lend money to another Christian at interest. And so they needed somebody to come in and lend this money so that people could borrow money. Enter the Jew. Who do you hate more than the person calling you saying, hey, you owe me money and I'm charging you interest, is your creditor. I don't know if this is a stereotype that I hate. I am amused by it. The stereotype that Hasidic Jews have sex through a hole in the sheet. Now,
is that not true?
Isn't that true? So here's the deal.
Yeah,
it's not. Let me just start with a spoiler alert. It's not true, right?
Wow.
Why would anyone have sex through a hole in the sheet?
Sounds kind of hot.
The Jews, they're called tzitzits. They're like the shawl that Jews wear around their neck every day, right? It basically is a square of fabric with a hole in the middle to put your head through, and you wear it. It's a religious garment. So throughout history, Jews living in non-Jewish greater communities hang their tzitzit from the laundry line, and non-Jewish kids will walk by, see a piece of fabric with a hole in it, and think what any child would think. Ah, someone through that, right?
Is that where it comes from?
Can't blame the kids.
Yeah, right? It's a sexual game of telephone.
So that's funny to me alone. But what's really funny about it is something we discovered here at the table. It's such a pervasive myth that Jews believe it about themselves.
Yeah.
We all, people, I can't
I've been
tell you
doing
how
it
many
all
times. But it's not true. Rachel, are there stereotypes in Iran about Jews that we wouldn't be familiar with?
Oh my gosh. Well, this is the beautiful thing that anti-Semitism really brings us all together, where many of the myths about Jews in Iran were similar to the myths about Jews in other countries. My grandfather would tell me stories of if he was on a bus and it was raining in Iran that day, someone on the bus would like say prayers to make sure the Jew juice that dripped off of him from the rain wouldn't like hex him. So a lot of the like anti-Semitism that we see in other countries is also present in Iran.
I think the thing that's so interesting is how internalized we all are about this. Like the shame that I think many Jewish people feel when these things come up. Because I think it's a function of like the prevailing environment that we internalize these stereotypes and we feel guilty about them, right? And we hold it in, and I think it's really painful. You know, and I think we have to have a kind of Jewish pride about who we are and about where we've come from, about what we've achieved.
My favorite Jewish food is challah. Challah is the braided bread that's been a centerpiece of the Shabbat dinner table. It holds a powerful message for Jews, weaving the world as it is with the world as it could be. And it's delicious. Throughout much of history, Jews have been persecuted, oppressed, and nearly erased, and even still always hold hope that a better world is possible. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel embodied that ethos. Born in Warsaw, Heschel was plucked from the fires of the Holocaust that claimed the lives of so many of his loved ones. He arrives in America in 1940s painfully aware of the world's failure to act to save 6 million Jews murdered by the Nazis. In his words, not all are guilty, but all are responsible. Heschel quickly emerges as one of the most influential faith leaders in the country. He is a rabbi, a philosopher, and theologian deeply invested in the cultivation of meaning and purpose. Heschel resonates to the struggle for equal justice in America. He sees a moral obligation to join with leaders of all faiths and demand an end to Jim Crow and the era of racial terror. Heschel and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. meet at a conference on race and religion in 1963 and become fast friends. Both of them fueled by the biblical narrative of the Exodus from Egypt, seeing it not only as an ancient story, but an eternal promise, from enslavement to freedom, from darkness to light. King invites Heschel to march by his side from Selma to Montgomery. I love that image. A religious Jew from a great Hasidic dynasty, arm in arm with black pastors and activists. Heschel later writes, "When I marched in Selma, I felt as though my feet were praying." A philosopher-poet who finds a way to transform his people's suffering into a force for justice, Heschel becomes the model for deep-rooted Jewish activism. He rails against the immorality of poverty, racism, and the Vietnam War, and insists that Jews take our commitments to the streets. His legacy continues to shine and inspire. As many young Jewish activists have picked up the baton, fighting for Black Lives Matter, democracy, and human rights, Heschel taught us to weave meaning and purpose together. "Make your life a work of art," he once said. "Live with radical amazement, because every life is precious. There is beauty and meaning everywhere, and we have a lot of holy work to do."
So this is couscous. It's one of my favorite things to do. This is like a real couscous, made 3 hours, not the box instant, you know. Next to it is like my mom's signature things. It's called gourmet zabzi, but there is lamb there, so it's lamb zabzi. It's made with tons of herbs like dill and tarragon and parsley and mint and cilantro and tons of spinach and chickpeas and some Persian lime inside, like dry lime. This is kolachuch. It's a Yemenite kind of pancake we used to eat, and fish kebab. And then I have some onion salad. It's like almost like pickle, it's not too strong. And then I have some labne and chilbe. Chilbe is a fenugreek sauce. So basically what I would do is like this. And I love tacos, so I like to eat like tacos, so that's what I do with the labne.
Yemeni taco.
We go in fusion here.
This is so good.
Yeah, this is incredible.
So, fish and meat. My mother was never happier than when she cooked her brisket.
Oh.
So I had to have brisket for her.
Now we're cooking.
But I also wanted to serve fish, which was really inspired by my recent travels to Israel. And they would just throw the sauté pans on the table and you would eat out of the sauté pans, and I really liked that. So, and along with that, there's some roasted carrots, because what brisket is complete without?
For sure.
Not mine.
Right?
Not mine.
Roasted carrots. And over there is broccolini with a little Dijon vinaigrette.
Wow.
That's so good.
Oh my God, the texture, Nancy.
For those of us who just have like a more quiet Eastern European palate with a little Southern flair, we're eating matzo ball gumbo. The recipe came from Mrs. Mildred Covert, an octogenarian who was sharp to her last days, survived Katrina, and told me all about how this particular dish came out of influences of Black and Jewish women living on Dryad Street down in New Orleans. Those are gomen, that's Ethiopian collard greens. So the Ethiopian Jewish community is one of the staples, also bell peppers and onions. And we also have some roast chicken, because it's not Jewish without roast chicken, right? And we have the kugel on the table.
With rice, though.
With rice, which is Lithuanian, and with peaches, which is very Southern. And the West African brisket is based on my travels in Nigeria and Ghana, and it has a spice called suya, kind of like curry or berbere that you put on meat that's grilled.
Well, this is fantastic.
That's so cool. This is so good.
It's unbelievable.
Rabbi Brous, what does your scroll say?
Anti-Semitism is defined as hostility and prejudice toward Jewish people. Tell us about a time that you have experienced anti-Semitism. My best friend in 8th grade, her parents wouldn't let her hang out with me because she said you can't trust those people.
Whoa.
And
Where'd you
we
grow up?
had in a leafy suburb in New Jersey. There were 3 country clubs in this town. 2 of them had a no blacks, no Jews policy. That was it. In the 80s, it was like late 80s, and no Jews were allowed. And so all the kids went to dance classes in one of the country clubs, and we couldn't go. And there were some swastikas, and there were like little incidents. Now I would say most of the hate mail and death threats that I get have a really interesting kind of intersection of misogyny and anti-Semitism. Like that's just part of the way the culture is right now and part of our society.
I was on the Washington Metro one time, and I was going my way to Hebrew school to teach. And extremist group type people, they were trying to dominate the airspace of the train. The train is packed with people, and they were really loud, they were really mean. And then they figured out the words in my prayer book were Hebrew. And then they really let me have it. And all these things about Jews believe this about Jesus and da-da-da-da, and insulting him, da-da-da-da. And no one helped me. I just remember those feelings of just like, okay, what have I gotten myself into that somebody should want to harm me? And what can I really do about it?
Sorry you're going through that, man.
For me, it was 1,000 small things. It was like shoves at hockey practice. Hockey was like, we'd play other neighborhoods, and it was hellacious. Like when I was 12, we had our names on the back of our jersey, and my name was Edelman, and it was an awful year. And then when I was 13, they just put the name of like the dry cleaning business that sponsored us, and I was like, oh, thank God we don't have to have our last names on here. But like my face still said Edelman, so like I got some of it still, but like it's very much out there.
You know, when I grew up in a suburb of Los Angeles, there wasn't like that bad anti-Semitism. I was told that like Jews were going to hell, but I don't know. It seemed quaint. I didn't feel scared. And then I started doing comedy online. And that's when I realized, oh, anti-Semitism, it's not this myth. I've just lived in these Jewish enclaves. Oh. It's very, very real. And so there have been a couple things I've done that have angered, especially like people, I would say, on the conservative right. And a couple times that I've done that, even though those things I've done have nothing to do with being Jewish, they'll do things like go to my Wikipedia page and edit every other word to be like, she's a Jewish Jew from Jewtown, because it's this internet idea that the Jews want to corrupt our children, right? And this is a fringe right-wing conspiracy that isn't so fringe. The comments are brutal. And I hate it. I hate reading those comments. It tears me up. It's awful. And it makes me scared, especially now that I have a daughter and I want to protect my family. And all it takes is one nut to come out of the internet and decide to do something about it.
You know, at the ADL, we track the extremists. We've had double the number of anti-Semitic incidents in America in the past 5 years, 115% increase. Across the board, vandalism, violence, harassment. So a 12% increase in hate crimes overall. The data is actually pretty grim.
This year was interesting how the rise up against the colonial tactics of Israel met with anti-Semitism. I've never been to Israel. I don't have a relationship with it at this point. And
I do.
Yeah, I mean, and a deep one.
Okay. First, it scared me that the situation in Israel give people like a legit excuse, you know? Right after Trump got elected, I don't want a connection, but it's right after I got somebody carve on my table at Balabusta swastika. Then right after the things happened with Israel and things got escalated there, somebody wrote in, we have a location in DC, and somebody wrote something in Arabic, we translate that, not very pleasant. I think it's just an excuse for people. It's easier to, okay, now we have more reason to hate them, you know?
So last May, around the fighting in Gaza, Jews were attacked in broad daylight here in Los Angeles or in Times Square. And the thing about those incidents, like in Times Square, nobody helped him. Nobody stood up. Nobody jumped in Times Square,
were really
in the
horrifying
Diamond
videos.
District, Midtown Manhattan.
I think when we were seeing that thing in May and people really oversimplifying a complex situation and then using that as an excuse to bring out their anti-Semitism, that was scary to me. And when I just literally support opposition of an anti-Semitic attack. 2 old people were on La Cienega and they were attacked just for the fact that they were Jewish. I posted, this is awful, this should not be happening.
And what happened?
Flooded with DMs. Certainly people like, yes, that's awful. More often, at least half, just really vile speech towards myself, towards my Judaism, and towards the situation and what they deserve. And that to me felt scarier than just someone that's a super Nazi in Charlottesville or something like that.
For some reason, it seems like people feel very free to make anti-Semitic comments in a way that maybe they don't feel as free, especially right now, to make comments about other groups. You know, it's kind of like it's okay to say that about the Jews because of these myths, like they're powerful, they're greedy, they're trying to screw us out of something, right? So I think like when you see these comments, they're shocking because you can't believe like somebody would publicly do that or publicly say that.
Just as a quick aside, there was an athlete who said something on a live stream that was anti-Semitic. And then, you know, I remember Julian Edelman, in fact, like wrote this like really inspired tweet, which was like, come over for Shabbat. Let me teach you about, you know, the experience of being a Jew, which I thought was like to meet it with love and compassion about maybe a blind spot that this guy had to not quite understand the words that he was using. And then, you know, he certainly paid a price, but it didn't end his career. And I thought it was appropriate, you know, the punishment that he got and that he was able to still like hopefully learn and do better. But if it wasn't anti-Semitic, I think it would have been a much harsher punishment. I think because it was anti-Semitic that people didn't feel as inclined to be as tough about it. And the double standard of it, for me, is really interesting.
I love Julian Edelman because he sort of comes at anti-Semitism with such kindness.
Just to close that gap, though, the basketball player who said that anti-Semitic slur, he's done a lot of work. I've followed up on that story, and he's been very active within the Jewish community, and he's really been humbled, and he's really been accepted by a lot of the Jewish community that he's in now. So he's done the work. It's really inspiring, to be honest. It was a good teaching moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I think about my day-to-day, what's most threatening is not my Judaism as a person walking down the street. It just isn't. Like, it just fundamentally isn't. It's my trans identity. And, you know, it's also one of the most marginalized groups in this country, in the world. And, you know, that threatens me significantly more, right? On a physical level, on an emotional level.
Tommy, can I ask you a question about that?
Oh, sure.
Do you feel supported by your Jewish community in your transition, or no?
Look, I feel really fortunate that I have a family who, you know, for the most part, my Jewish community are my relatives for the most part. But no, I don't feel like the Jewish community as a whole is like supporting.
I want to say thank you for sharing that. I think that the American Jewish community is being held to account by trans and non-binary people and Jews of color. And so I think it's changing. We're in this moment of transformation right now between the old way and the new way. And the new way is fiercely loving and beautiful and also open to learning and making mistakes and growing. And so I think we're kind of on the cusp of something really extraordinary that's happening right now. And you're right, there's a massive amount of failure here, and it's historical failure, and it's actually violence against the LGBTQ community for thousands of years that now has to be actively undone and redone so that the community can truly be what it's intended to be.
It's really inspiring to hear that. I think ultimately it's generational, right? And like, I love that you're so progressive in doing that work. That's really moving for me to hear.
In high school, I was called Jew boy simply because of my nose. I was numb by the end of high school.
As I got older in like middle school and high school, it was, you know, anytime anyone saw any coins or like on the ground or pennies or anything, it was always like, aren't you gonna pick that up?
I am a Black convert to Judaism. Last Halloween, a white kid around my age was dressed up as a stereotypical and quite offensive Jewish caricature. I told him I was Jewish and he said, and quote, "You can't be a Jew, you're an." I never told anyone.
I have a mom who's Jewish and I have a dad who's Muslim, and I consider myself a full Jew. Even as a child, I remember one of my first memories of going to my mom and telling my mom, hey, this girl, a family friend, said that I'm not Jewish.
I don't want to have kids, but knowing that I exist because my ancestors survived thousands of years of persecution, because my grandparents survived the Holocaust, means that I will have kids. That's an enormous amount of pressure for anyone to carry around.
I was in the synagogue during the Poway shooting. Thank God I wasn't personally wounded, but I did witness death and tragedy that fateful day. I found myself repeating, I'd rather die firm in faith than live in fear without meaning. This was the Chabad in Poway. I know the rabbi. I know so many of his congregants. It hit home. When you die firm in faith, it means your whole life you lived with a purpose. You lived being proud of who you are. Be strong. Be firm. Be happy.
Nancy, let's go to you. Will you share with us your scroll?
The Holocaust was only 75 years ago. Could it happen again?
I think that's what we're taught when we're kids, right? Never again. It seems like a foreign concept, but you see things happening all over the world that are so devastating.
Yeah.
Anti-Semitism is obviously on the rise, and I think that's part of the work, to be a proud Jewish person and to not hide the Star of David or the Mezuzah on my door and actually stand up for what's right. And absolutely, I think it could happen again.
All the Jews were raised with this idea of never again, but they didn't tell us, like, it's never going to look exactly the same. It might not be the Jews. You know, it's like we've been trying to prevent this, like,
crystal knock,
very specific crystal knock,
right.
this specific thing from happening. It's like it's not always going to look the exact same. It's going to morph.
Yeah. Right.
You know, I think we've all seen in the last few years, like, there's a million little versions of what happened. It doesn't have to be the Holocaust to rhyme with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
My grandfather in Germany, when he was a young man, when he was young, he never could have imagined that one day, before the rise of the Nazi death machine, the only country he ever knew would turn on him, regard him as an enemy of the state, destroy everything that he ever loved, slaughter his entire family and friends, and force him to come here as a refugee. He never would have guessed when he was a young man that his grandchildren would be born in this country. And so I don't think that I or any of us around this table can take for granted that our grandchildren will be born here.
My grandparents on my mother's side were Holocaust survivors. My grandfather essentially lost his whole family. His father was shot on the way to the trains because he had a club foot and couldn't keep up, so they shot him. I remember there was always this photograph in their house of this woman. She was holding a baby, and I remember this story that, you know, my mom was like, they died in a gas chamber. My grandmother loved telling me Holocaust stories, how she, you know, hid in the woods with her family and heard the bombs going off and felt the bombs going off. And so I was raised with these stories, and, you know, you talk about like PTSD or whatever, and I lived with this trauma my whole, you know, since I was a kid, and it didn't even happen to me. But it obviously had a profound impact because I guess it's the kind of thing where you're always on the lookout. It's weird knowing that they were murdered.
And you are a miracle.
Yes.
Right? I mean, the
yeah.
fact that you exist
I know.
in the world.
It is a miracle. It's certainly a miracle.
So many of us, 6 million people, got killed in the Holocaust. I think it's really important that we know about it, that our kids know about it, that people who aren't Jewish know about it.
I will say that, you know, you're all young. You don't really know that, you know, the world that I grew up in, the idea of another Holocaust was unthinkable. I mean, it's not just Jews. I mean, what has happened in this country is that the people who think that this country belongs to them are furious. They are going to do everything they can to keep the future from happening. And all these things that we felt confident were sort of in our past. And now they are very much in our future, and it terrifies me.
You know, it starts with the Jews and never ends with the Jews. And I think we think about democracy as this, you know, we take it for granted, like the air we breathe or the electricity that makes things work. And the reality is, like, this can go away like that.
I think it's really important to think about because there's intergenerational trauma that has happened because of this. My father escaped the Holocaust, but everybody else in their family, their parents, their siblings, everybody was killed. And nobody would talk about it because they wanted to protect their children from the trauma, from the pain. And what happened is when you don't talk about it, kids know there's something traumatic that has happened and they don't know what. And so I think instead of protecting them, it made them scared. It made them feel like there were these secrets. It made them ashamed of being Jewish.
You know, no matter where you come from in Jewish life, us being here is a shtuk, is a stick in the eyes of every Nazi, that we should be in this place of all different colors, all different backgrounds, saying Am Yisrael Chai, that we still live.
To be honest, and weirdly, anti-Semitism is not what I love the most about Judaism, but it's the part of the Jewish journey that is the most fascinating to me, because no matter where we are, no matter what we do, no matter how much we assimilate, people hate us, and that is scary, but it's also very empowering to think we should not be here, and yet here we are.
Yeah.
Okay, so my scroll asks, what makes you most proud to be Jewish?
I think for me, it's the fact that we can claim Paul Newman.
What is it? I guess it's like an essence. It's a strong...
A musk.
It's a strong, opinionated, colorful, fluid, fighting energy, questioning energy, never settling energy.
Creativity and humor.
Yes.
And community and invention.
You know what it reminds me? Robin Williams been in an interview in Germany, and they said, "Oh, you're so funny. We don't have any funny people like you." He said, "Yeah, you killed them all."
Oh my God.
There are some funny Jews out there, and it's like my personal belief that comedy is the answer. It's the only way to get through.
Not only that, we invented stand-up comedy. I mean, vaudeville was just Yiddish theater in English, so that's where we come from. I will say this too, my favorite phrase in maybe all of Jewish literature is the title of a Shalom Aleichem book. It's Some Laughter, Some Tears. And to me, that is the entirety of the Jewish experience.
One of the things that made me really proud as a Jew was that in, let's say, the last 4 years, there were a lot of communities that were being victimized and marginalized. And I felt like Jews were really doing their part in standing up and saying no. And we're being very vocal. And we're doing what I think is an important tenet of Judaism, which is standing up for others. You know, it feels like a really deep part of my Judaism to recognize Jews have a special responsibility to stand up for persecuted minorities. And I was proud of us, you know, because I felt like we were doing that, even when we ourselves were facing some of that same pressure.
I'm proud of the fact that Jews have survived. You know, they've had so much thrown at them from the Jews in Egypt to the Inquisition to the Holocaust. And they're resilient and they've kept their culture and their traditions intact.
I agree.
I love that I come from a people who are survivors.
I love that too.
They put us down, we go on. They kill us, we come back.
To me, being Jewish is being around family, and it's not necessarily immediate family, but just the idea of being around people you love, and I think that that is so Jewish.
Like, I really love Shabbat.
Yeah.
I love, with my family, like turning off on Friday night and like no emails, no phone calls, no texts, no work, nothing. And it's incredibly like energizing and empowering in so many ways. So that's really what I love.
I like that. I think it's a big reason why the Jews survived. For years, Jews were kicked from country to country and killed and pogroms and the Holocaust. And the only way a people could survive something like that is at any given point, they never had longer than 6 days to wait for peace to come.
It was Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel who said, as much as the Jews have kept Shabbat, Shabbat has kept the Jews.
That's awesome.
Very
That's
nice.
great.
Wow.
Wow.
Goodness.
Wow. What do we got?
God.
Rugula.
What are those?
Jelly donut?
So we got rugula, and say it like that with a lot of spit. Babka, we have sufganiyot, we have the kind of cookies you get at Shabbos Kiddush.
It's like pizza. There are no bad versions. Thank you.
Oh man, this is so good.
There we go, Shabbos cookies on the plate, great.
We have a chocolate tart with a sesame seed caramel, halva gelato, and spun halva on top.
Ooh.
Bravo.
I've never had my halva unspun before.
Well, now you have.
Okay, girl.
This is tahini creme brulee, and we have some shredded halva. We call it Persian cotton candy sometimes. And here we have a fried baklava. It's pistachio ice cream with a lot of nuts and some orange blossom and a little bit cardamom. So you have all the flavor in baklava, and then we just like wrap it in filo and fry it very fast so it's not going to melt inside, and we have some syrup on the bottom. Enjoy.
Wow, stunning. It's also so beautiful.
Okay, well, thank you all for being here. I just feel really honored and grateful to be with all of you. I've learned a lot, so thank you. Thank you for this delicious food.
My God. Oh my God, was this food delicious?
Thank you.
Chef Admony. Oh my God, incredible. Okay, so as a final beautiful act, we're decorating this mezuzah together. We are each taking a colorful piece of glass and making a mosaic to create one unified mezuzah. And Rabbi, I'm wondering, as we decorate, if you could tell us about the tradition of the mezuzah.
Yeah, the mezuzah is a threshold marker. This is how we mark transition from one space to the next, and we determine what we want to bring with us when we enter a new space and what we want to leave behind. And it's also an outward expression of our Jewishness. I mean, you put the mezuzah outside your home, and there's a lot of courage that comes with that affirmation that we are who we are, and we're gonna hold that with pride despite whatever danger and whatever else might come with it.
You know, the mezuzah, you hang it just a little bit crooked. You don't put this crooked because it looks awesome. You do it to remind yourself that in every beautiful experience, in every joyous occasion, there's a little teeny touch of pain too. Some laughter, some tears. And that, as we've said, is the summation of the Jewish experience. And so, what do you do with a broken glass? Well, you put the pieces back together.
You know, we are here to talk about anti-Semitism, but all I have felt from every single one of you has been the pure love and safety that I feel whenever I look into the eyes of another Jew. Amen. There will never not be this core group of family mishpacha that we have had since the beginning and will continue to have.
Perfect. Thank you.
If the story of the Jewish people is that we continue to live, may all oppressed people, may all people find a way to live together and say, L'chaim, everyone.
Every rabbi has the same joke. Shofar, so good.
Do you recommend the shchug on, I know what it is, I just never know how to say it.
You want a sug on it? Sug on it.
And I'm going to say this really badly, like Z-H-U-G. How do you say that? Yeah, but it's like, it's very guttural. It's like not zug.
This beautiful pancake and lachuch.
Lachuch.
Yeah, don't break your teeth. Okay, so lachuch.
Don't break your teeth.
Come together as a people.
Put down.